This experience took place when I was a senior in high school. I'd driven to visit a friend who lived in the next town over from me. It was still daytime, and I knew the road so well I could have driven it blindfolded. It's a very curvy road, surrounded by tall trees on both sides, houses with long driveways here and there along the road, all pretty dispersed. My parents lived about 10 minutes away from town on this road, and I drove it every day to school as well. The road is just outside of city limits, so there were never cops on it, and most people I passed always went well over the speed limit. I was listening to music with my window down when I spotted a white van. You know, the stereotypical kidnapper type of van, driving in the same direction as me up ahead. When I got behind them, I had to slow my speed about 20 miles per hour because they were driving extremely slow. I thought that was more annoying than creepy at the time. I creeped along behind them, making comments to myself like, "What the fuck are they doing? Come on dude, speed up." The first curve we rounded, the van merged into the opposite lane. It should be noted that this is a dangerous curve. If a car was coming in the opposite lane, you would hit them head on, as the trees created a blind spot. I backed off a little and was scared he would wreck and I would be collateral damage if so. I honked my horn at him, furious, to make it known that he needed to get his shit together and stay in his lane. He continued driving in the opposite lane, and soon we approached the next dangerous curve. I got a pit in my stomach, thinking this person was clearly drunk or high and not able to drive. In that moment, I glanced at his license plate thinking I would call and report him for reckless driving, which I never did. But this was different. The van had no license plate on it at all, which was even more odd. The van took the second curve, an even more dangerous curve, with a bigger blind spot, and was so far over in the other lane that it almost looked intentional, not like an accidental crossing of the double yellow line. I honked again, making it clear I was furious. Just past this curve, there was a very short straight stretch of road. Even though there are double lines, this is the place I knew I could pass him if I gunned it. I slightly merged into the opposite lane to see if any cars were coming, and when I did this, I noticed the van slowing down even more, almost to a complete stop. I yelled, "What the fuck, dude?" And the van was now in the middle of the road, halfway in both lanes, meaning I couldn't pass him. I started getting super nervous. My heart basically stopped beating when I realised there were no houses around, and I was stuck behind him. That's when I saw his brake lights light up again, and the van came to a complete stop in the middle of the fucking road. I stopped my car, panicked. Then the van slightly creeped forward again, but turned sideways, blocking the entire road now. That's when I knew whoever was driving was probably about to attempt to do something sinister to me. I know this road well. I know the ditches, the curves, everything. A large man with a beard opened the driver's door of the van and stepped out slowly, glaring at me with a dead look in his eyes. I don't know what came over me. I thought to myself, oh fuck no. I wasn't scared anymore. I was furious. I turned my wheel sharply to the right and pressed the gas with barely enough room between the nearest tree and the side of the van. My car squeezed past the van in the ditch. I saw the man in my rearview mirror as he ran back towards his van door and hopped in. I knew he was about to follow me, and I've never driven so fast in my life. Thank goodness I know every curve, which gave me an advantage. I see my parents' house coming up, and I whipped into their driveway and sped to a stop inside their garage where the van couldn't see my car. I made it just in time, and I saw the van pass their house as I stood at the edge of the garage and peered out, hiding behind their garage fridge. I told my mum and dad about it, crying hysterically. I never could report what happened with an official license plate number because the van didn't have one. I did call and tell the police department what had happened with a general description of the man and van. But since the road was outside of city limits, they told me I should call the sheriff's department and they'd send someone to attempt to get the van for reckless driving. I don't know who that man was or what he was intending to do with me, but I was terrified to drive that road for a very long time afterwards. This happened 4 months ago, maybe more, but I really don't know for sure. Anyway, I was 19 years old when it happened, and I've now turned 20. I was going home from university after classes. I usually take my keys with me, but around that time I'd lost them, and my mum was yet to take me to get a new copy. I remember I kept insisting, but she wouldn't listen. So what I did was knock on the door to get my younger brother's attention, so he'd come and let me in. But my mum also took his keys and just left him there locked up as well. I asked my brother to pass me my charger from my room, and I called one of my aunties to see if I could go hang out at her workplace in the meantime. She said yes, and then told me to call an Uber that she'd be paying for as soon as I got there, and that's what I did. Now, the Uber didn't pick me up exactly at home. It was in the house across the street instead. No particular reason, it just was that way. The moment I saw the guy, he gave me kind of a weird vibe. But I also tend to be paranoid every time I so much as hop in a taxi. So I just got in, rolled down the window, and kept a grip on both my phones. It all seemed relatively normal until we got to the area where my aunt's workplace was. This is a convenience store at her home, in a housing, in a private division, similar to a condominium, I suppose. However, he just completely drove past it and claimed he was following the GPS. When I asked him about it, he wouldn't let me see the GPS. He seemed to know exactly where he was going. Now, I was kind of doomed from the beginning because I don't know directions, and I could only rely on the driver being a decent person and recognising the area, which I did. But wherever he was taking me, I had no idea. I remember seeing this fountain that I could recognise from when my mum drove to my uncle's place, but that was way further away from my aunt's place. By now, I was kind of thinking of what to do, because this guy drove past a fuck ton of empty housings, and a couple of them even seemed to be still under construction. Then, he stopped near a place that looked like the end of civilization. We were literally on a hill, and then he turned off the car. I got lucky in so many ways looking back on it. My phone had no credit. As soon as I thought of that, my aunt called me and asked, "Where are you?" And I literally felt my heart drop because I had no idea. And this dude was just staring at me. I said I didn't know and asked him, "Hey, where did you take me?" And he replied with, "I wouldn't know what to tell you, kid." That was enough for me. I grabbed my backpack and opened the door real quick with a loud, "That's fine, I'll see myself out," and hauled ass like I hadn't in a very long time. I remember being afraid of carrying my backpack on my back in case he would chase me and pull on it. So I was holding it in front of me in my hand with my hoodie wrapped around my waist. As I thought of where to hide, I thought of knocking on someone's door. But for some reason, that didn't seem safe to me at the moment. I remember telling my aunt not to hang up because he was still following me in the car. Then I saw an empty, barren area surrounded by concrete walls and a strong bar gate. Except there was enough space under the gate to crawl in. So I literally threw the backpack and then crawled under. There was a huge electric control box, and I opened it to crouch inside and hide. My aunt's still on the phone. She and my other aunt and my uncle were all on the call with each other, putting credit on my phone and asking for my live location through WhatsApp because I had no idea where I was, literally in the middle of nowhere. I waited there for 2 hours and this guy wouldn't leave. I even had to go pee outside the box and immediately ran back inside. There were tiny spiders and old honeycombs. So I was also fighting both my arachnophobia and trypophobia. At some point, I'm guessing the guy left and my uncle got there in his truck. He didn't know where I was, so he kept honking and telling me to tell him when I could hear it closer. And then I finally did and got out. For a while, I thought maybe this had been a misunderstanding and I'd just jumped out of some guy's car like a maniac without even paying him. But then when I got home after staying at my aunt's pharmacy for a while, until my mum who still didn't know much about what had happened, had come to pick me up. I checked the Uber app, and not only did it say I had already paid, but it also said I'd made it to my destination. So I ruled that out. I told my aunties not to tell my mum about it because she goes insane at the minor inconvenience. So telling this would only freak her out. And she also wouldn't be any help. I only let her know when I called her to come and get me, and on our way to get a copy of that key. Because of course, something bad had to happen until she actually listened to me. And nowadays, she always puts credit on my phone. So that's just what went down. I had to Indiana Jones that shit twice, and to this day, my family brags about how I was able to keep myself perfectly composed and react quickly, which I'm still shocked about. I remember seeing broken glass and metal bars laying around and telling my aunt, if I'm going down, I'm taking him with me, in a joking manner, because of her blood sugar levels were fucking her over. On her way home, my mum told me I wasn't in hysterics because I was in shock and that it would hit me the next day. But it didn't. I kept going around as normal, but last week, she brought it up again and asked if I didn't think I was going to die. I said of course, but I also knew freaking out would only either make me an easier target or just not help at all in any way. When I remember it, more than scared, I feel angry. I could have been one of the many, many girls who just disappear and are later found dead on a random hill or in a ditch. And I can't say I suffer survivor's guilt because, in all honesty, I don't. But I can't help but think that could have been me. Whenever another kid or teenager is on the news as missing or found dead, it really could have gone terribly wrong. My parents believe this guy was a rookie who maybe felt sorry for me and let me go. Because if he had wanted to, he could have hurt me with some sort of weapon or just try and kill me right then and there. I don't even know anymore. I sent his profile to all the girls I know so that if they ever happen to get him as their Uber driver, they can cancel. Since then, I don't take Ubers anymore.